Hi, again, it's me, that guy that looks like an egg and is a dog. That's about it. I've recently made a few videos on what it's like to play video games as a dad, and I'm still working my way through the next video game that I'm playing, but it's taken me a bit longer than I thought it would. So in the meantime, I thought I'd make a video on something that's been playing on my mind recently. I recently listened to the Friends Per Second podcast. Shout out to the podcast, it's great. Jake Baldino, Ralph from Skill Up and Lucy James. Great podcast. Go watch it. On a recent episode, they talked about how there's a weird vibe in gaming right now, and they touched on some really good key points that have been floating around in my head. They sort of discussed how there's a lack of enthusiasm in the gaming industry at the moment, and it's been swirling around in my brain recently that it's due to a number of things. I feel like this year has been very off for gaming compared to recent years, and I think it's got to do with a number of different things that have happened in the industry and reasons why gamers don't seem as enthusiastic and as into games recently than they have the previous years. So yeah, this is my video discussing, are gamers tired of video games in 2024? So like I said, I've been listening to a few podcasts recently and talking to my friends, checking Discord. There seems to be a bit of a weird vibe going on at the moment in the gaming industry. There's a lot of negativity, and I think a lot of gamers are very pessimistic about the upcoming video games, especially AAA releases. And I think there's a few reasons why gamers, journalists, developers all feel this way, and I wanted to touch on a few points that have been rattling around in my brain these past 8 months or so. So the first point I wanted to talk about is obviously the mass layoffs in the video game industry. Now, you've probably heard a lot about these. They seem to be all over the news, not only in gaming news, but also it's been making it to the bigger headlines as well. National newspapers and news channels about the mass layoffs in the video game industry. I think the layoffs are due to overhiring during COVID, and a lot of people are saying the same thing. Obviously, during COVID, there was a mass boom in the gaming industry. Everyone was stuck at home, everyone was playing games, talking with friends, buying new games, having great times, learning new experiences. It was great. Kind of. Not really. COVID wasn't great. No. Especially for me. So yeah, video game companies tended to hire lots of people during COVID because they needed help with the extra interest in games. They saw a lot of growth, and you know, corporate companies, they want to see year after year growth, so they thought, well, we've had such a big growth this recent years during COVID, you know, the only way is up. Well, obviously not, because people went back to work. I mean, what do you expect? People went back to work, people started having families, and people had less time to play video games. I'm sure anyone could have seen that coming, but hey, you know, whatever. So yeah, there's been a lot of layoffs in the gaming industry, but it's not just gaming developers that are losing their jobs, which is not great anyway. You know, bigger companies are buying smaller companies, but still big companies like Activision and Xbox, and they're buying these studios and these companies, publishers, then just laying staff off and just saying, see you later, thanks for all your work, we've paid all this money for you, and now we're showing you the door. Now, that's not good, and of course there's reasons behind it, but it's a lot of negativity, and it's causing a lot of sadness in gamers. Gamers like to follow developers. They like to see what the same developers put out year after year, or, you know, game after game. For myself, I wanted to see what was next from Tango Gameworks, and they got shut down. Alright, yes, they're being bought now again, so that's good, but you know, I wanted to see what they could do with The Evil Within. I wanted to see what they could do with newer IP, and now it's sort of, I hope they get to work on Hi-Fi Rush 2, but it just seemed really sad. Not only game developers are losing their jobs and being laid off, but publishers as well. Humble Games recently got shut down with a really good track record of games. They just stopped the publishing label and just laid the staff off, I believe. Now, I'm not a journalist, I don't know, but it was really sad news. But not even developers and publishers, but also journalists. Journalists have been losing their jobs. Game Informer just closed. Like, what's going on? And not only that, but a load of game journalist websites been bought by the IGN, or the company that owns IGN? I don't know, but that doesn't sound like good news. That sounds like a monopoly. I don't know. I'm not clever enough to understand these things. But I know it's not good, and it's caused a lot of upset among gamers, and you know, you can't blame them. Now, because of this bad news always in the headlines, and it seems like it's been like this for the past 12 months at least, if not longer, it's constantly out there, constantly in headlines on your favourite gaming websites like GameSpot, IGN, whatever you like. There's always a news article about people being laid off, and it's just put a sourness among gamers. You know, it's hard to get excited about what's next from Activision when you just know like, all the people that have been laid off. Same with other companies as well. Look at all the stuff from Embracer. I was so excited to get new Darksiders games, new Tomb Raider games, and now I'm very skeptical about what they're going to turn out to be like if they do eventually come out. Games are just being cancelled, delayed indefinitely, and it's just a big sourness in gaming news at the moment, and of course that's really not just going to play well with gamers, especially gamers that are always online, always on social media, always putting their opinions on Reddit. It's just going to make it worse and worse and worse, and fanboys are going to disrespect other fanboys and tease them and taunt them. Haha, you can't get your Last of Us game now. Haha, you're not getting the next Halo game for ages. It's just sour, man, and it's just upsetting. So yeah, the layoffs aren't great, but there are other reasons why I think people are a bit sour and negative in the gaming space at the moment. I want to talk about AAA games. Now, don't get me wrong, AAA games are a great time to be had. You sit on the sofa, you indulge yourself in this massive 30 to 40 hour epic. You see a lot of set pieces, it costs a lot of money, so it looks really good. Take God of War Ragnarok for example, what an amazing game. Take The Last of Us, Uncharted. These are AAA games. I'm very excited for Assassin's Creed Shadows. I'm very excited for Star Wars Outlaws. It's probably out by the time I finish making this video. Who knows? But there's something in the AAA game space at the moment that's just a little bit lackluster. A lot of AAA games are being released with just some negativity attached to it before the game even comes out. And I think this has to do with a few different things, but mainly it's time. People are waiting too long to play the next entry in their favourite franchise. Now, I personally understand that games take a long time to make. I don't make games, I'm not saying that. I just understand they're $200 million investments. It takes a long time to make. You've got face tracking, you've got teams of thousands of people working on these games every day, week in, week out, and it still takes a long time to come out. Now, I think a lot of game journalists are understanding about this, but fanboys aren't. And they seem to be getting rolled up. They want their favourite game franchise to have the next entry come out, and they're not getting it. And I understand that. For example, we had, was it 6 years in between Halo releases? I'm a massive Halo fan. And you could say, yeah, Halo Wars 2 came out in the meantime, and I understand. That was a great game. I love that game. But 6 years in between? I don't know, man. It's Gears 5 came out in 2019. The next one's probably going to come out in 2026. 7 years between games. Like, it's too long to wait. And then games get dates put on them, and then they get delayed, and more negativity in the news, and more pessimism, and that interest gets less and less and less. Or they try to be excited, but can't be excited because it's been delayed too much, and then why has it been delayed? That's not good news. AAA games, you know, they're a gift. They are a gift, but they're also a curse as well, you know. I don't know where I'm going with this. What am I talking about? Anyway, back on track. Not only are the games taking too long to come out, and we're talking about sequels in people's favourite franchises, new IP is taking so long to come out as well, that when it eventually does come out, the hype's died off, the game doesn't do well, it doesn't get a sequel, and it's a waste of investment, and then people lose jobs again, and then that goes in the news headline. It's an endless cycle. Now, if you're a Sony first party studio, you could probably publish new IP and it will get a massive fan base. That's brilliant. But what if you're not a first party studio and you want to take a risk with something new? It's a big risk, and for AAA publishers, they don't like the risk. They want to see numbers. They want to know the game's going to come out, people are going to buy it, it's going to do well with critics, it's going to get even better in the press, and they make their money. Now, with new IP, it's very skeptical, because not only is the new IP sort of untested, but the game mechanics that go into that new IP are going to be different from anything you've seen before, unless I suppose it's a standard fighting game or something. And because of this, new IP is falling by the wayside. So we've got less creativity in AAA games. Now, there's a lot of creativity in indie games, but there's also a problem with that, and I'll come back to that. But yeah, I think new IP, it really struggles in this day and age. And because of the IP struggling, publishers want results. So they either want a sequel or they want a remake. There's a reason why we're getting so many remakes and remasters, is because the publishers know it will do better than a new IP. And can you blame them really when games cost so much to make? But even the remakes are taking too long to come out. Look at the Prince of Persia remake. When did that get announced? And it's not coming out till 2026? Didn't it get announced at 2020? 6 years for a PS2 remake? Oh man. I don't know what's going on. It's so hard to be excited and positive about video games. It's hard not to be skeptical that they're going to be good when they eventually come out. So yeah, AAA games taking too long to come out. New IP isn't doing great. Look at Wayfinder, the new games from the guys who made the Darksiders series. It came out, the publisher detached itself from it. They've got to now self-publish it. And they completely changed the game because they wanted it to be live service, and that didn't work. And I'll come back to that. So studios are banking on games we've already played. Remakes, remasters. Yeah, so that's AAA games at the moment. Not all of them, but most of them. So, I hear you. You're saying, well, that's alright, just play indie games. I understand that. I love indie games. I've only really come to them recently, and I've just fallen in love with them. I want to play so many. Too many. There's too many indie games. It's so oversaturated at the moment. And you're saying, hey, you're publishing a video on YouTube. Isn't that oversaturated? You're totally right. But this don't cost me a lot of money. I don't put my life on the line making these videos. Poor indie developers are putting their life and soul into indie games, and sometimes they come out and they do fantastic and they get all the praise they ever need. Look at Balatro, the guy's just become a millionaire just from making his game that he was passionate about, and that's brilliant. I love to see it. However, that's like the 1%. The amount of indie games that come out and just flop, they don't get any press, they get barely any reviews, they don't sell well enough to their publishers, then they shut the studio and they go work in Asda. Probably. I don't know. It's sad, man. It's upsetting. Indie games are so creative, innovative, where AAA games are scared to get creative with their games, mix things up a bit, give a little zhuzh. Indie games are doing it left, right and centre. But there's too many. You go on to Steam and you find a game one day, and the next day you go back and you can't find it for the love nor money, and you try to remember the name of it but you didn't add it to your wish list. Oh, and it's just gone. And it's just the same story over and over. Take for example this year's Summer Games Fest, right? I thought it was great. It was a great indie showcase. How many games do you remember from it? I remember one, Killer Bean. That's all I want to play. I can't remember what else came out. I added a few things to my wish list, and then I went back on my wish list on Steam the other day and I was like, what is this game? That's because there's a mass oversaturation of indie games at the moment. All these games are innovative, but they all are kind of the same. There's a lot of the same genre out there, and I'll get back to that. And the ones that really stand out will grab your attention for 10 minutes and then it's on to the next one. It's so tough, and only a few break through, you know? So, yeah, I mean, like, opening Steam nowadays is kind of like opening Netflix. You know how, like, sometimes you want to try watching something new on Netflix, and you go onto Netflix and you search through the top 10 in the UK or the top 10 in your country at the time, and you go, oh, that looks good. Not in the mood for it, and then you find something that you kind of want to watch, but you see the first episode's like an hour and a half, and then they're like an hour after each, and you're like, that's cool, but I haven't got time to watch that. So you spend another 15 minutes trying to look for something that grabs your attention, and then you get bored and you go back to watching The Office again for the 8th time. because you know what you're getting in for. You know that you're going to have a good time. You know you know the jokes, but you know you're still going to laugh at them. That's kind of what games are like at the moment. You kind of don't want to go on Steam and look through all the games to maybe find something you want to spend your money on when you've already got something in your library that released in 2007 and you know you're going to have a good time with it and you know it's going to grab your attention, you know you're still going to have fun. Go and play that game from 2007. Why try something new and innovative and creative when it's going to take you an hour to find the game, then you've got to download it when you could be playing one of your favourites? It's a shame. I think things like Game Pass are great for indie games because there's not as much barrier to entry. Like at the start of this year I played through Cocoon and Tunic and Turnip Boy Robs a Bank. What a masterpiece of a game, by the way. I'll come back to that another day, but wow, I love the Turnip Boy games. They're just so funny and fun and quirky, but I don't think they've done well. I don't know. I mean, I'm not their publisher, but like, I don't hear any people talking about it, especially casual gamers like myself. But I love it, you know, and it's just a shame. Like, it's such a shame because they're so creative and innovative, but there's just too many of them. And I'm not even talking about the anime girl-looking weird games. You know the ones I'm on about. I'm not saying it, but censor that stuff, especially on Steam. Christ almighty, there's too much of that. But even the good games are being lost amongst other great games, you know, really well-deserving indie games that deserve your time are getting lost against other well-deserving indie games that also deserve your time. There's publishers coming out just for indie games. 2 of them got announced at Summer Games Fest. 2 publishers announced they're starting to publish other indie games. It's just too much. It's hard to keep track of. You're forgetting names. All I end up seeing is the hotness in the moment and then forgetting about it again. Man. There was a stat that came out, I think, recently this year, and it said about like 60% of all games played last year were over 5 years old. And it's so shameful to hear that, but also understandable. Why risk playing new games when you can go back to the old games from 2007, like I said, or what your friends are playing? They're playing Fortnite, they're playing Fall Guys, or whatever, but those games are now well established. They took 5+ years to get where they were, and now they're doing well, whereas games are coming out and expecting that growth straight away, where it's hard to do that nowadays. People have got less time than they did 3 or 4 years ago, you know? So I can understand that stat being so many games played last year were over 5 years old. Not only that, but people's backlogs, you know, people hear about these games and always say they're going to get back to it, and then they might get a new console, they might get a new PC and go, now is the time for me to test that game out, and then they go back to those games, and then they play those games for a little bit, and then they get caught up with other things, and then they don't play the newer games that come out, and the games that are coming out in 2024, they'll probably be played in 2027 or onwards, because that's when people will eventually get round to them if they can't afford to buy them there and then when they initially get released, because games are too expensive. But that's okay, because you can buy an indie game because they're cheaper. Oh, where do I put my money? Because I don't know, because there's too much blooming options. I think I just woke the boy up. I'll be back. He's okay, he's okay. He's not well at the moment, neither am I, as you can probably tell. Anyway, carrying on. So there's an oversaturation of indie games. AAA games are taking too long to come out. And when they do come out, they all dip into the same genre. So I want to talk about now the oversaturation of genres. You might be thinking, what do you mean? How often have you seen a trailer or something like a Gamescom, or you know, or something like a games conference, like a Xbox Game Showcase or a Summer Games Fest, and the developer comes out and he says, yeah, thanks, we've been working on this roguelike RPG with Metroidvania elements that's going to be live service, that is also turn-based, and I'm lost. See you later. You know, the same genres are just being tick boxed over and over and over again. Not always, obviously, of course, but in my opinion, the amount of indie games that come out and I'm like, wow, what's that art style? Wow, what's this game like? That combat looks good. Roguelike, see you later, bye bye. Now, that's just a me problem. I can't get on with roguelikes. I've never gelled with them, that's me. However, I love Metroidvanias. If I saw that art style and that combat and it said Metroidvania, I'd be like, take my money, you know? It's the problem with these oversaturation of genres, these tick boxing, is you're appealing to a lot of people, and that's the marketing side of it, you know? Let's advertise this game as a Metroidvania and we'll tick boxes of hundreds of thousands of gamers across the world because they love Metroidvanias. Of course, I love Metroidvanias. And then they go, okay, we'll also say it's a roguelike. And now you've turned off 100,000 people across the world. You might have also turned them on. Like, you know, whatever gets people going at the end of the day. But these genres that games fall into, it's a blessing and a curse. I've already said that. It's a blessing and a curse. It's great because the gamers that know they like that genre are more likely to buy your game. But then there's also a lot of gamers that probably don't like that genre that will not play that game or even think about it twice. And that comes down to not only AAA games, indie games, AA games. I think it comes down to every game. Like, I love Souls-likes. I've played through Elden Ring, I watched my recent video, I talk about it all. So when a new game gets announced and the combat looks good and it says Souls-like and I'm like, yes, fantastic. But it took me a while to fall in love with that genre. And if I probably started playing roguelikes now, in 2 years' time, I'd probably fall in love with the genre. Again, me problem, I know. However, I can't be the only person on the planet that's like this. I hear podcasts again and again say that they just can't gel with Souls-like, yet a year later they've completely fallen in love with them. I think Elden Ring had something to do with that, and I think, you know, that does help. But it's the same with fighting games. I love fighting games. I'm a massive Tekken fan. I can't play them. I'm rubbish at them. Do I buy them? No. Do I wait for them to go on sale until they're like less than £7? Absolutely. Same with Mortal Kombat. I absolutely love Mortal Kombat. I can play it against my wife and win most of the time. Don't let her like hear that, you know. But do I buy them when they're 40, 50 quid? No, I wait for them to be less than a tenner. Like, of course you do, because I'm time poor and money poor at the moment. Like, I just don't have the time and I don't have the money. But I am more likely to put my time and money into a genre I know I like. Let's say a new Halo game came out. I'd put my time into that. It probably would come out on Game Pass. That saves me money, you know? Same with Souls-likes. If a new Souls-like come out and it went on the Game Pass, I'd probably play it. Or if it was less than 20 quid, I might buy it. If I really like the look of it, if it's getting good reviews. Now, there are things that have piqued my interest that aren't necessarily in the genre that I usually play. Like, I've finally played Inscription this year and absolutely loved it. And you might be thinking, well, that's a roguelike. Kind of is, but it also has a story. It has a roguelike mode, but once you beat that, you get through and it's kind of not a roguelike anymore. I really like that game, and playing that game has made me want to play other deck builders, whereas usually I don't even touch deck builders. I don't know what I'm doing, but now I'm like, yeah, give me Balatro. I'll give that a go. You know, can I play Gwent? I don't know. I played through The Witcher 3 and didn't touch it at all, but now I'm interested. So I don't know what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of the same out there at the moment, basically. The other issue with this oversaturation of genres is AAA games are trend chasing like there's no tomorrow. Not only this, I think smaller games are doing it as well. Smaller indie games, AA games, they're all trend chasing, right? Souls-like are big at the moment. The amount of sort of games that are coming out that have a bonfire system or a sort of more strategic combat rather than, you know, hack and slash, because it's methodical, and that's kind of what Souls-like are like. They're chasing that. I couldn't be happier with that, but I'm sure a lot of gamers just wished it would be back back to normal, hack and slash, dodge, repeat, right? But they're also chasing live service games, which are a massive money investment and not a quick return on investment either. So when they don't work out within the first 6 months, no one's surprised. And people are turned off live service games. The only ones that are really popular are like Destiny, which Bungie just lost loads of staff, so that's great. Fortnite, not been as popular as it was before, you know, 2 years ago, whatever. And a few other games, but I think most of the live service games have sort of died down now. I don't think they're getting much new content. Look at Suicide Squad, that was meant to be live service, that fell flat on its face. I could go on and on and on, talking about many failed attempts and talking about games that have done well. But in this scenario, the amount of failed attempts, the ones that have done well, if that makes sense. And even ones that kind of do well, these guys up here, right? They're the 10 out of 10s. These, they're not even like 2 out of 10s. They're 7 out of 10 games. They are good games. They work, they might have a few bugs, but they probably run well. They've probably got nice graphics. They've probably got a good storyline. But it just gets lost in the weeds. Why waste your time on a 7 out of 10 game when you could play a 10 out of 10 game, right? There's a video I watched recently, I think from Nakey Jakey, who said he loves the 7 out of 10 game, and that's based on an article that came out from someone at GameSpot, I believe, that also based it on another video. I don't know. Anyway, 7 out of 10 games are great. However, if it's not ticking all your boxes, if it's not in a genre you love, there's probably no chance that you're going to pick up something new if it's only a 7 out of 10. Because most of the buzz around it will be meh. It's not even bad. It's not even a bad game, but it falls flat on its face because every other game is fighting for your attention. And then all of a sudden, Animal Well comes out, it gets 9s out of 10, and everyone's playing this game that costs 20 quid. And it's from a guy I've never heard of, and it's published by a YouTuber that is popular, but most people didn't think it was going to work out well, and look at it, it did really well. And again, games that don't do well, and then the one that does, you know, is right at the top, and that's great. But it's such a small fraction of games that are doing well, and so many others that seem to be good games, 7 out of 10s, just get left by the wayside. I've not played Suicide Squad, but that game looks functionable to me. The combat looks okay. It looks like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. It fell hard on its face due to its trend chasing, and it probably wanted to make lots of money off microtransactions, and people are just bored of it. People are sick of it. Oh, why play that when I can play this game everyone else is playing? Look at Chained Together, a game that cost like 4 quid. Everyone was playing it, like, because Twitch streamers were having fun with it. That's what people want to put their money into and time into. I don't blame them, I played it. I had a great time, you know. So, yeah, to sum it up, there's too much bad news in the gaming industry at the moment that sours the excitement in gamers for new games, leaving them to be very skeptical about their favourite franchises and the new games coming out from them. AAA games are taking too long to come out, and when they do come out, they're a bit lackluster, they're trend chasing, they're a remake of a game that you've probably played like 10 years ago, which, you know, for someone like myself, seems like yesterday. I'm not that old. I'd like to think I'm not that old, but still, it was like yesterday. So it's like, why are we getting a remake of a game that came out so recently in my mind? Indie games are creative, they're fantastic, they're innovative, they're amazing. I love them. There's too many. I don't know where to look. I don't know where to put my money. Too many are nipping at the same genre. I don't like crafting survival games. I don't like roguelikes. I don't like farming games. I don't like turn-based RPGs. Imagine the amount of indie games that come out and that's them, and I like this. Now that's just me. I could be quite independent of that opinion. Some gamers like everything, that's great, but I do think there's a lot of casual gamers out there that are put off by these subgenres that games get put into for a marketing reason. Again, it's appealing to a lot of people, but it also puts a lot of people off. and then they just hear the same words over and over again. Look at the Xbox 360 generation. First person shooter, third person shooter, racing game. That's all you got, pretty much. That was great for me. I love those genres, but if you loved RPGs or turn-based games or strategy games or even sports games kind of, or maybe you weren't having a fun time, you know, or platformers, like that's when indie games started, but there weren't many 3D platformers, 2D platformers on the Xbox 360 that were AAA releases. The indie games sort of filled that out, and Xbox Live Arcade was a thing. But it's the same thing now, it's just flipped. Where's all the first person shooters? Where's the third person shooters that aren't big AAA games? Where's the indie game version of Gears of War? And I know what you're thinking, that's a big budget game, it takes hours to like play through, I understand that, but it's just a point I'm trying to make. Genres I like, genres I don't like, and I think everyone has the same genres they like, genres they don't like. So yeah. And gamers just have too much choice. There's too much on Steam. It's like Netflix, you know, but not only do you have Steam, you have Epic, you have PlayStation, you have Xbox, you know, there's too much choice, too much things trying to buy your attention. It's like having Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus. You don't know where to put your attention. You don't know where to invest your time into. There's just too much out there. So yeah, I think that's kind of why there's a weird vibe in the gaming industry at the moment. How gamers might be tired of video games in 2024. I don't think they are. I think this is a bit of a lull period. It seems to be picking up now, especially towards the end of the year. We've got Star Wars Outlaws, we've got Indiana Jones, we've got big AAA games coming out at the end of the year. Not only that, but a few indie games that I'm excited for. So yeah, I mean, 2023 was just such a banger of a year for video games. I think that 2024 seemed a bit lackluster. Paired with the bad news, paired with the delays, it's put a bit of a sourness into the gaming industry at the moment. So I just wanted to sort of express what's been going on in my mind, and as you can tell from the verbal diarrhea, it's been coming out non-stop. So yeah, sorry about that, but yeah, hope you like my video. My new video should be up hopefully by the end of the month, probably not, probably sometime in September. I'm playing through Prince of Persia Lost Crown. I'm a bit mixed on it. It's taken me too long to get through, so yeah, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully get it done soon so I can get on to Star Wars Outlaws, but yeah, cheers.